Hey, what up, y'all? It's Young Rick with Westside Level, and today we're going to learn how to sound design our own string sounds. So the final product will sound something like this. All right, so how do we get here? Let's start off by initializing our preset so we can uncover some of the techniques behind designing a string sound. So, where do we start off with string sounds from this initialized preset? Let's start off by listening to what the preset sounds like. Not really what we want for a string sound. So what I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to raise the polyphony, which is this section right here, what this is going to allow us to do is play up to how many other number this is notes at a time. So I'm going to raise it all the way up to 16. Now that we got it at 16, let's take a listen to how it sounds. Okay, so now we've added polyphony to our sound. But this isn't necessarily the wavetable I want to work with for a string sound. I've noticed that when it comes to string sounds, a good wavetable, you can use any wavetable, but a good table to start off with a good bass for our wavetable is going to go ahead and be a pulse. And we're not going to pick the regular pulse, which is like the purest form of it. We're going to go ahead and pick the quarter pulse, which is like a thinner version of the pulse, and it'll give us a thinner sound. This is what a regular pulse would sound like. All right, so this is what the thinner version of the pulse we're looking for is going to sound like. Okay, so that we've picked out our wavetable, we added some polyphony. What's next? I'm going to give our sound some voices. What are voices? Voices is just how many of our wavetables that we got. So we have this quarter pulse. We only have one voice, so we got one quarter pulse. I'm going to raise it up to 4 voices, so now we have four quarter pulses. Why do I want 4 quarter pulses playing at once? Because this is going to allow us to now add some detunement to our sound and fatten up our sound. So this is how it just sounds when I added the 4 voices, no detunement. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume down because we're adding volume, a lot of volume. There we go. All right, so we're getting somewhere. Let's start listening to what it sounds like when we add our detunement. And you'll notice that if I go too far with the detunement, it'll start to mess up the pitch of the sound. So we don't want to go too far, but let's add some detunement. All right, I think right around there sounds good. Let's hear how that sounds. All right, I think we're getting somewhere for a bass. So what I'm going to do is now it gives us 2 oscillators, as you can see. One oscillator, which is what we use to create all of our tables and our voices and everything. So we got a second one here. So I'm going to switch over to this second oscillator right here. And I'm going to also give it a pulse shape. But this time, I'm going to choose our half pulse. And I'm going to also give that 4 voices. Let's hear how that sounds. sounding great. So instead of detuning this oscillator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with this fine knob, which is going to play with the pitch no more than one semitone. And what that's going to do is naturally detune these two oscillators. So let's hear how that sounds. All right, so you can see that when I went too far, the sound started to get a little out of pitch. So I backed it off a little bit, and this is what we got. Very thick sound for our string sound. So what's next? Now that we've gotten our oscillators all set up, I want to focus our attention on this middle section. This is our amp envelope. So what I'm going to do with what this amp envelope does is controls how the shape of the volume of our sound. So when we add attack, let's go ahead and get to the amp envelope. When we add attack, it'll make the sound fade in and out. Let me show you how that sounds. This is with no attack. Now watch what happens as I start to add attack. Notice how the sound didn't just come at you, it slowly faded in. And that's how strings actually sound. They don't necessarily come directly, they don't shoot at maximum volume directly at you. They kind of fade to the maximum volume. So we want to, when we're dealing with designing a string sound, we do want to give it some attack. Now, for the decay, what the decay is going to do is, let me put the sustain down just to demonstrate what it'll do. The decay basically determines how much of a sound, how loud the sound shoots out. So notice that when I give it a little bit of decay, well, notice right now when I play, no, with everything closed, it's very short, it cuts off. So we're going to go ahead and give it some decay, and let's see how that sounds. Now that sounds cool, but that's not necessarily what we need for a string sound. A string likes to sustain for a very long time and then slowly release. So we're going to close our decay. We're going to completely close the decay, and then we're going to open up the sustain. Let's hear how this sounds. Okay, now that sounds a lot closer to a string sound, but there's something weird going on at the end. It's like cutting out a little bit. That's where we're going to save ourselves with the release. And before I add some release, I'm just going to give it a little more sustain. All right, so now I'm going to play with that release a little bit. Give it a little release. I think we need some more release in there to get it sounding natural. Maybe I'll add some decay because I'm still hearing something. Perfect. So all we've done so far, this is how our string sound sounds. And all we've done so far is we've played with the oscillators and played with the amp envelope, and we've already got this sound. So next what I want to do is I'm going to want to go to our filter section. In our filter section, this is what's going to start making it really sound like a string. So what I'm going to do is turn it, we're on input A, and I'm going to make the filter type a low pass filter. So now that we have a low pass filter, when I move this cutoff, the more I move this knob to the left, it's going to cut off all of the high frequency information. The more I move it to the right, it opens up that high frequency information. With that being said, let me show you how that sounds. So now listen to how it's our string sound sounds when I set that cutoff with that low pass frequency. Does it not sound like strings? But there's still more that we can do. So now that we've added some a filter to our string sound, the next thing I want to do is I want to go to this mod envelope section. And what this is going to allow us to do is modulate some of the parameters on here. And the parameter I'm going to start off by modulating is this phase parameter. What does this phase parameter does is it starts to play with this shape, the shape of this wavetable. So we picked a quarter pulse. So what this phase thing going to do is if I move this phase up and down, it's going to move this shape left and right and make it a different shape. With that being said, I'm not going to actually move it. What I'm going to do is go to this modulation tab and assign it to the phase on our oscillators. To do that, let's focus our attention right here on this first mod envelope. And then we're going to go, as you can see right here in this section, it allows me to pick what I want. I'm going to look for phase. There it is, phase A. And then what I want to do with the phase is with this black knob right here, you could push it right to open it up and left to close it. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open up our phase. And then I'm going to go ahead and close our not AMP envelope, but our mod envelope. Why am I closing the mod envelope? Because with it closed, our sound, there's nothing that happens to our sound. It's completely the same. Now, if I watch as I open up our mod envelope with our decay, and I'm sorry, not our decay. Watch as I open up our mod envelope with the sustain. All right. And I know it's very subtle, but that subtle amount of movement is what's going to really make it sound like a string. So I'm going to show you what it sounds like without the phase modulation. And this is with the phase modulation. Perfect. So now the last section we're going to look at the actual, when it comes to the actual synthesizer, is our LFO section. And what this section does is it can add movement to our sound by, again, manipulating one of these parameters. But unlike the amp envelope, instead of it being controlled by, unlike the mod envelope, instead of it being controlled by attack, decay, and release, it's going to be controlled by rate and gain. And you'll hear how that sounds. It'll make things just go back and forth. So again, we're going to pick our phase. Oh, sorry, I'm still on that. So now we're on the LFO section, and I'm looking for our phase A. We're gonna open up the phase. All right, and then we're going to add some gain to our LFO, and then we're gonna play our sound and then find our rate. See how that adds a little bit of movement to the sound and really starts to make it sound like a string. This is a demonstration. Perfect. And again, this is just a basic form of how to make it. You could do you could take all of the same concept, the same philosophy, and play with different wave tables, choose different LFO tables, choose different things other than phase to manipulate. But these are just some basic techniques to get you into the ballpark of how to design your own string sounds. So the last thing I'm going to show you with this is some effects that you can do once you got a bass string sound like how we got down right now. So this is our string sound. All right, so I added some coarse to the string sound using our effects section right here. And let's hear how that sounds with just some coarse added. So as you can see, adding coarse to some strings can sometimes thicken up the sound. I'm going to turn that coarse off. Let's see how it would sound if we added some reverb. Perfect. And that is the lesson today. Now, again, if this type of content helps you, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, comment in the section if you want me to sound design any other sounds, or if you have any ideas on what I should be sound designing, and I'm going to go ahead and get at you with that. All right, like always, y'all niggas be smooth. Westside level, I'm gone.